Photoshop for realistic drawings. You're going to have a lot of latitude in this exercise, but what I want you to really pursue is making your drawing as realistic as possible. I also want you to use these tools in a more sophisticated way. First of all, I've imported this photo, but when I imported it, the proportions I wanted, if I want this to be my focus right here, according to the rule of thirds, it leaves kind of a blank down there. I'm going to fill that out. What I did was I just filled a whole layer with black, and I'm doing a green modeling to match these leaves. The other layers are going to be on top of it, so if it overlaps, that's not a problem. Here's what I want you to do with the tools. Go to your brush tool, make sure you're in the brush tool, and if you don't see a tab here to open it up here and push that. Now your brushes will always be here. There's some important choices here. You have the hard brush, the small brush, the presets. You can change the size down here. Everything's in one place and a lot easier to use. You can also turn on and turn off shape dynamics. So if you're trying to color a large area, having it off will give you a brush like this. If you're trying to do fine line work with pressure, where a light touch gives you a light line, turn it on. Okay, so for right now, I've got a large brush. I want to just do some basic fill, maybe not that big, about like that. I don't want it in my way now, so I can click these two arrows, collapse the icons, and I want to pick the color. If you go to your color not your swatches, but the color itself, and click on there, you get an icon. You can pick in this group. You can just make it darker or lighter of the same shade, or the eyedropper goes to your picture and you can click it from there. The eyedropper picks up that color, say OK, now I go to my background and I'm going to apply a little bit more in the background layer. Now in the background, and background means the stuff that's not drawing your attention, the stuff that's behind. Usually in a photograph, it's all fuzzy. It's not in focus. My drawing's not that out of focus, and I want to make it a little softer. So I'm going to go to the smear tool, or R, and I can choose a brush for that, a brush size. In fact, I want a little bit of texture on this, and I want it to be bigger than that. I'm just going to work the edges a little bit. Give it a little bit of roughness. Once again, this is out of focus. It's in the background. They're basically leaf shapes, but they're not going to be exact. So if you have a dark background or whatever kind of background in the picture you select, work on that first. Now that you've got the basic softness in there, I'm going to bring back the image. Can't really see the background because it's behind it. And notice that there's some shadows. Shadows are very important for determining form. So I'm going to put some hard shadows in here. I'm going to go back to bigger brush, but not giant. Turn that off, and I'm going to pick up a color. Once again, I click on the color. This is fill, this is line. I'm worried about the fill here, so I pick up the fill, take the eyedropper over here to this, and I'm going to pick up that color from the original picture. It's not black, it's a dark color. In fact, you don't even have to call it anything, you just know it's there. And come back over these areas. I've selected my background layer, so I can't see what I'm doing right now. Oh, that's smudging tool, my bad. Choose the eraser tool. Now I want these shadows here. This shadow tells me that there's something out here casting a shadow, and that's very important to get a realistic sense of, what shapes are out there, how things are shaped, where they are in space. Now I can see those colors. I'm going to change this. I actually want my color to be a little darker to match my background. Black. Hit OK. And these leaves are going to have a shadow across them. It's a little thing that we're used to seeing. It doesn't always make a lot of sense unless you're really looking for it. And there's the original. So we've got a decent background. Now on to the stems. I've drawn the stem. I'm going to hide the background so you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to zoom in by doing Command plus. Hit H. It goes to the hand. And you can drag it around. I've drawn this one little section of stem. I'll hide the picture so you can see it. It's taken a little bit of time, but in the background it tends to look pretty realistic. I've got a little over the edge there, so I'm going to erase that. My bad. Make sure I'm in the right layer. In fact, I'm going to lock the background. Now I'm in the stems layer. I'm going to erase that little bit of extra. This is not outlined with lines. It uses lines to make the rounded shape of it a little bit, but everything's blended together and soft. Let's add another stem for an example. Okay, so I'm going to do the stem down here. Move to my hand tool, move it up where I like it. Okay, go back to the brush. I'm going to paint this in first and then give it shape. On the bottom where there's no light, it's darker. On the top there's a lighter hue, and then there's an in-between one. So we're going to start with the in-between, add some dark, add some light, and then come back with some color, or some blending. So I want to pick up this color, that's my midtone, and just mark where it is. Get a little smaller brush. I've turned off shape dynamics because I'm just trying to fill an area. That brush is a little bit big. This area is going to be darker here, so I'm paying attention to it. See how some areas change quite a bit? Try to draw what you see, not what you think is there. I'm not going to draw this little stem. It doesn't add much, but this one does. And this is softer too because this isn't quite as in focus, so it's all right that it's not exactly colored. Okay, now I'm going to choose in the same range, but a darker tone for my shade. Make the brush a little smaller. The underside is going to be shaded. Again, this isn't exact because we're still looking at the original one. We're going to have to go back and forth to make sure what we're really drawing and what's there. If I hide the original, you can see how it's covering. That's good. Okay, that's good. Give it some areas that are a little bit darker. And I'm going to make some areas that are a little bit lighter. So this is the same color. I'm going to go up and a little bit warm. Say okay, that's my color. And on this one I want shape dynamics. I want to have a little control. I know this is not doing it fast. That's part of the idea. Wherever the sun is hitting it on the top, there's a highlight. When it's shaded, there's a low light, and in between there's a medium color. Now the smudge tool. Way too big. I'm not going to smear it around, I'm just going to shake it up a little bit. Make it a little irregular. Now, I'm pretty zoomed in right now, so this looks like it's really awkward, but when you see it by itself, it's not too bad. And when you zoom out, it makes a lot more sense. It's got separation from the background. It's very clear what it is. There's one little piece here missing. There's a shadow, and I'm going to come back and paint that in. So to zoom in, it's Command plus, H for hand. This is a lot easier if you do it in a small scale. And I want this, there is a stem here, and this has to be colored. So I'm going to go to my colors, pick that up, say OK, make sure I'm in my brush, and this shadow part gets filled in, and it has a curve. The curve tells you about the shape. Okay, that's just a start on this one. I'll need to do the same thing for the leaves. So what I want to see in this is a background that resembles the original one. It's not a copy. I want to see composition, in that the picture is using the rule of thirds and it has good focus. And I want to see this be really realistic. Yes, sometimes you'll have little lines, but you don't outline each piece. On the leaves, there's obviously going to be some lines, but what I want to see is this curve here. And pick up the colors from the original. You'll have, this is a different color than this. This shadow right along here is crisp because it's a shadow. This is shading because it curves away from the light. So it's pretty dark down here, but it's light up here and much lighter up here. Here it's hitting the light completely. You have a lot of time to do this project. Pick a picture you like, pick a picture you can follow through with, zoom in and take this carefully, one layer at a time, and remember, always lock the layer you're not using. Make sure you're marking the layer you want to be on. Good luck!